Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, has been my favorite out of the prequel movies. I know that's an unpopular opinion to have because it's pretty much universally considered to be the worst, although Episode 2, at least in the public sphere, gives it a run for its money, and in my opinion, Episode 2 is by far the low point of the series. Regardless, I've often felt that I've looked at Episode 1 with rose-shaded glasses, because I did see Episode 1 in the theaters back in 1999 as a kid, and I thought it was awesome and fantastic. Obviously, I've gotten older since then and realized that the movie isn't that great. Not saying it's a bad movie, it's just not as great as I thought it was when I was 9. I mean, that's understandable. Most of the things we thought were fantastic at 9 aren't really the same. There are a few things, but most of them aren't. So I thought it was time, especially with Episode 7 coming out, to take a good, hard, long look at all the previous Star Wars movies that had come out. And I think it just made the most sense to start at the very beginning. Not at the very beginning with how they came out chronologically, but the story that George Lucas made and wrote and ultimately decided this is how he wanted his Star Wars universe to unfold. Now, I will warn you, this is going to be very spoiler heavy. Of course, the movie has been out 16 years and had a absolutely terrible 3D re-release for no reason except to take more of your money and laugh about it or something like that. So anyways, you've been forewarned, and I apologize if I ruined something for you, but you've had 16 years. So the movie starts right at the very beginning with the familiar title crawl, and right away something jumps out at me. We have the taxation of trade routes has engulfed the Galactic Republic in turmoil. Really? This whole debate over the taxation of trade routes is what engulfs it in turmoil. And just an interesting note, I've already started watching Episode 2, and how it begins, even though there's star systems, separatists, they're separating from the Republic, they say, oh, there's unrest in the Republic. So, star systems, leaving the Republic, that's unrest, but taxation of the trade routes, oh my gosh, we have turmoil going on. It just makes things seem a little hyperbolic, which oftentimes in the prequels is the case, and oftentimes within Star Wars is the case too. It's just that the originals in Episode 7 do a lot better than the prequels. Now, there is a blockade of the planet of Naboo going on, which is just a copy-paste of Alderaan that we never got to see, but basically that's what it is. They don't believe in violence. And one thing that you can notice right away, there is mystery and intrigue. A lot of people thought that the movie moved too slow, that there wasn't action right away. I actually really, really like it. I'm kind of like, okay, what are these things going on? I know we have a little bit of tidbit information. I think, honestly, the opening, it could have been very well done. And I think it was, for the most part. You can notice right away that they're using real practical sets. Episode 1, another reason why I like it so much, compared to the other two prequels, is that real sets are used. You can tell that real sets are being used. These are real locations, whereas a lot of Episode 2 and Episode 3 feel very fake, because all they were using is CGI. The banner between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon is pretty good in the opening. As much as I do like the prosthetics for the Neomodians, the lips moving looks pretty fake. So that's, there's a plus minus. Yay for the prosthetics, but yeah, the lip syncing looked pretty bad. It looked like animatronic and not like an alien, like you would hope to believe that it is, which is somewhat understandable why George Lucas decided to go with CG if the prosthetics were going to be that terrible, but I don't think that's really the case why. Qui-Gon does point out the obvious with sensing a great amount of fear over a trivial trade dispute, which is good, but it's kind of already established when the Neomodians talk to Darth Sidious. I do really like the fact that they got Ian McDiarmid to reprise his role, this time as Senator Palpatine, but ultimately becoming Emperor Palpatine. And you can just feel the power of his words, especially within his Darth Sidious character. But in general, even as he's posing as a good guy, you can still feel that his power comes from what he says. That's how he really just entangles people. Even though the prosthetics still look pretty fake, they do a good job of expressing emotion somehow. I guess you could really just commend the actor's performance of bringing that to life when the Jedi are breaking through the blaster after the cruiser's been destroyed and they've tried to kill them, I should say. They're coming through the blast doors and they're just freaking out. And he's like, "This is impossible!" I really like that. You can really tell that he's freaking out. You can see it on the face. So, like I said earlier, I know they could do stuff with the prosthetics to make it not look so fake, and for whatever reason, it still comes across as like, okay, just have them open and close the mouth like they did the old ones. That seemed to work fine well enough. Another thing is we have Droideka Ex Machina going on. Why can't the Jedi just force push the droidekas out of the way? They do it to the battle droids. In fact, that is established quite frequently that they can just pretty much force push anything. It was kind of a point George Lucas wanted to show off. It's like, hey, look at this. Haven't done this in the original trilogy, but we're going to show how we can move things with the Force a whole bunch. Most of the time it was just getting lightsabers, but this time we can do anything except for droidekas because, well, story reasons. Regardless, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are able to escape to the planet of Naboo as the Trade Federation is invading the planet. We are then panned to a shot of Amidala and her council, and right away we're given her weird Queen Amidala voice. It's stiff, it's weird. I understand that they're trying to do some wild, crazy switch-up thing because George Lucas loves his reveals, but couldn't you have picked the voice a bit better? I mean, to be perfectly honest, I really can't tell the difference between whether it's Padme or her handmaiden. Also, another thing to point out is because CG was still a relatively recent development, a lot of the CG characters look fake. Some of them still look good. Like, I still like Watto. He looks like a realistic enough character. But especially, and this doesn't really help, the most hated reason for Episode 1 and the most hated character in the Star Wars universe ever, Jar Jar Binks. He doesn't look real. I think I noticed that really for the first time watching this movie. Of course, it has been a few years since I've seen this movie. And yeah, Jar Jar in particular, because you see him so much, but a few of the other CG characters, they just look fake. They look like CG characters. They don't look real. It looks really, really bad. Qui-Gon states the obvious with Jar Jar not being intelligent. Even though Qui-Gon saves his life, he really doesn't like Jar Jar. No one likes Jar Jar. Poor Jar Jar. Everyone just wants to kill Jar Jar. But while certain things with the CGI are not well done, some things are. Like the Gungan City. A lot of the landscapes in Episode 1 are well done. I think they're beautiful. They're gorgeous. I don't know exactly how they did it all. Maybe it was pure CG. Maybe it was rendered with painting or something like that. But the landscapes in this movie are just spectacular. I love it. So, Jar Jar takes, being saved by Qui-Gon, he takes Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to the Gungan City, which isn't really given a name, it's just the Gungan City, where we get to see more pointless, unfunny jokes, and we get to not take the Gungans seriously because they say things like big doo-doo. Another thing is we only know that Qui-Gon is using Force Mind because of the original trilogy. It is not shown clearly with Boss Nass when Jar Jar brings them before them, asking for transport to the Naboo. We are just given Qui-Gon waving his hand around, as Watto talks about. What are you doing? Just waving your hand around. The only reason we know about that is because of Episode 4, because Obi-Wan uses it on the Stormtroopers, and it's quite blatantly obvious. It's not blatantly obviously in this Star Wars Episode 1, and if this was your first Star Wars to watch, you might not know what's going on. Fortunately, most people were Star Wars fans and did know, but this was something that keeps popping up within Episode 1 and keeps popping up within the prequels, is a prerequisite knowledge of what's going on in Star Wars. And if you're trying to make this chronologically, if people are supposed to watch it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can't make movie mistakes like that. Granted, it's a nice little wink wink to those who have seen the originals, and you can have things like that, but it should be inconsequential to the main story. And them getting from the wilderness of Naboo to the city of Theed is important. Although the scene with the Jedi going through the planet core is absolutely and completely pointless because we have pointless dialogue about why Jar Jar was banished. And we have Deus Ex mega fishina twice. There's always a bigger fish. It's just we're witnessing more. Why is this going on with episode 1 and ultimately the prequels? Also, another inconsistency is Jar Jar seems to know about the Force, but a lot of people seem mystified by it in the original trilogy. And we get to see a lot of these inconsistencies in the prequels where everyone seems to know the Jedi, everyone seems to know about the Force, but somehow between 17 years between episode 3 and episode 4, it's like no one has no idea what you're talking about. These have passed into legend in just 17 years. 17 years! That'd be like a year from now, talking about Y2K was the stuff of legends. But that was a real thing that many people were afraid of. And while I did say Theed looks beautiful when the Neimoidians land and they're like, ah yes, victory, we've conquered the Naboo, you can totally tell it's up against a green screen. So Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Jar Jar sneak into Theed to go rescue the Queen, and the fact that anything related to Jar Jar being able to sneak around is funny enough as it is, but Qui-Gon has the time to put away his lightsaber while they're dismantling battle droids and just force push them, and the battle droids aren't firing at all. I know they're not supposed to be the most intelligent things, but you think they would still be able to keep pulling triggers if the enemies were still alive. Regardless, it seems that the droids aren't the only ones that are dumb, as the Naboo pilots need to be told by Obi-Wan when to run when they're free. So after successfully running through the blockade, in which we're introduced to R2-D2 because he saves the day, and R2-D2 is awesome, and you know, they run through the blockade, but they got battered, their hyperdrive is leaking, the Queen's safe. For now, they have to crash land, well, not crash land per se, but make an emergency landing of what of all planets? Tatooine, of course, because, well, we love it. And granted, it may not make sense in the grand scheme of things, but let's be honest. We love Tatooine. I mean, we love Tatooine so much that Episode 7 decided to make Tatooine without calling it Tatooine. They're just like, oh yeah, it's Jakku. It's totally not Tatooine, even though it is Tatooine. Because Star Wars gotta have its Tatooine, you know? Captain Panaka makes a fool out of himself by not knowing who controls Tatooine, but yet when the Hutts are brought up, he says, oh, the Hutts are gangsters. So you don't know who controls Tatooine because you're so far out on the Outer Rim, but yet you do know they're gangsters. That makes sense. And poor Natalie Portman continues to get terrible dialogue, and we have an unnecessary introduction scene between Padme and Jar Jar with just some terrible acting, some terrible dialogue. It's just terrible, terrible, terrible all the way around. Pooh jokes continue with Jar Jar Binks as him, Qui-Gon, R2-D2, and Natalie Portman, Padme, I should say, all make their way to Tatooine to go find the replacement parts that they need to go into hyperspeed again and get to Coruscant, so they can inform the Senate as to the atrocities and invasion that are currently going on the planet of Naboo. We get more stupid Pooh jokes and more stupid scenes with Jar Jar. I understand why people hate the character of Jar Jar, but they utilized his character so terribly. It was just, granted he was supposed to be a comedic character, but you can make a comedic character that is at least a little bit endearing, and they just did nothing, absolutely nothing to make Jar Jar the least bit endearing. You can't blame Ahmed Best for that, not one bit. It's just, poor Jar Jar. He never had a chance. But Jar Jar can't just be the star of the show. We have to have classic cringe-worthy lines of, "Are you an angel?" coming from poor Jake Lloyd's mouth. Poor Jake Lloyd. The kid was 10 years old. Give him a break. He can only do so much, especially with the George Lucas script. So our heroes run along this boy Anakin, and we automatically know that he's special. First of all, because, well, we know Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader and the father of Luke Skywalker. But we keep pointing to, oh yeah, he's a wizard. You know, another thing, wizard in Star Wars. Yeah, whatever. But hey, now apparently we have droid, please. So I guess wizard isn't so bad. And he is also a pilot, and he's been a pilot all his life, all freaking 9-10 years of his life. And where on earth did he come from? That's an interesting question that never gets answered, but probably in the books in the EU somewhere that doesn't exist anymore. Thank you, Disney.